Thank you.
100%.
Hi, everyone who's joining us, and welcome to our live Q&A session with DoughGetters. I can see a bunch of you have joined us, and that's great. We're going to give just a couple of minutes for a few other people to join. So if you can just hang out. I'm Carly. I'm going to be hosting the session. I'm in the marketing team at Lulaland, and I'll be doing some formal introductions with the DoughGetters team in just a minute. So make sure you've got a nice cup of coffee waiting for you. And I suppose it is lockdown, so if you have a glass of wine, I'm not going to judge you. And we'll kick things off in just a few minutes. Okay, we've got about 10 people here. I'm going to give it just another minute or so, and then we can hang out. Okay, awesome. I'm gonna get going with just a little introduction and some thoughts before we kickstart our chat. The first is, again, just to welcome everybody. Welcome to our live chat. This is a very new and interesting world that we're living in, but I'm quite grateful that we have the chance to kind of get together as a community and have access to these awesome experts and business owners to kind of chat to you throughout this experience. You'll notice that I've put you all on mute for now, except for our hosts. And that's just to give us a chance to kind of have the floor initially. And then we'll take some questions if you've got some questions that you'd like to ask live. I'm going to ask that if you do think of something as we're going throughout the chat, all you need to do is to just post it in our chat. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's like a bar with some options there. You can mute, you can stop video. One of the options there is a chat. And at any time in our discussion, if you think of something and you'd like to ask the question, you can just post it in the chat channel. And one of us will either answer it directly there, or we'll try and bring it up as part of the conversation. We're also going to be recording this. So if at any point you want to come back to this discussion and kind of go through the points that we've gone through today, we'll have this posted on our Facebook group if you're a part of that already, or alternatively, we'll look to put this on our blog and make it available for you to watch at any time you like. So with all of that housekeeping being said, as I mentioned earlier, I'm Carly Barnes. I'm part of the marketing team at Lulaland, and our DoughGetters team is joining us today. We've got Melissa Duploy, Kenny Kutzer, how do I say it, Kenny? The first one or the second one, not sure.
Kutzer is fine.
Okay, cool. And Willem Harhoff, and they are from DoughGetters Online Accounting. And I think maybe Melissa, I'm going to ask you actually, because I think Kenny and Willem will probably have the spotlight for the rest of our chat, but I just thought maybe you could tell us who is DoughGetters and what do you guys do?
Hi, Carly. Thanks to you guys for this opportunity. Thank you, Lulaland. We're very excited. So DoughGetters Accounting is started in 2017. We're a digital accounting firm, and we sort out the bookkeeping and accounting side of the businesses and make sure that your business compliance is sorted, and making use of smart tech and being able to automate as much as possible from the routine work, so that we can get into the detail of the numbers and add value to our clients in such a way. And we only make use of Xero.
Okay, cool. Xero is probably a name you guys are all quite familiar with. And the reason that I thought these guys would be amazing for us to chat to today is because they work so much with small businesses. They really have a handle on the kind of unique problems that some of you are facing. And actually, I was chatting to Melissa, and she said to me, a great thing to discuss would be this idea of payment holidays. So I'd roughly heard about payment holidays. I'd seen it on the news. There's so much information out there that I thought, let's open the floor and we can ask some questions directly about that. So I've gotten a bunch of questions that you have sent me, and I'm going to just work through those. And if there's anything that comes up along the way, feel free to post in our chat. So let's kick things off. Willem or Kenny, feel free to jump in if either one of you want to answer the questions. Let's start off with just a basic one. What exactly is a payment holiday? Can you break it down for us in very simple terms? What is a payment holiday?
Okay, I'll kick off with that, but I have to scratch an itch, and mostly this is for Melissa. She said that neither Willem nor I are allowed to tell bad dad jokes, which is kind of a company tradition. So I have to get that out of the way right away.
If you must.
So in my mind, a payment holiday sometimes is similar to this statement. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can't see. This is when you laugh. All right.
Love it.
So the payment holiday is something, it's a global phenomenon at the moment. Everyone may have heard of it. It's true. It's wrong on both points. It's neither a holiday nor a payment plan. But what it does do is it allows you to direct your cash flow in the immediate term to things that are operationally important for your business's survival. So a lot of the banking institutions in South Africa and globally have, to varying degrees, allowing particularly small business owners to push out their payment until probably about 3 months from now. Most of them have gone on the 3-month plan. A couple of them have also included investments where you can release your 30-day notice deposits and those type of investments without incurring penalty for early release. So it's really allowing you to manage your cash flow better. But it doesn't preclude you from paying those amounts. I think that's really important for people to realize.
So this is really something that's being offered by financial institutions. Are there any other people or institutions or companies that are offering these kind of payment breaks, or is it just like your bank or a financial institution?
To the best of my knowledge, and I'll let Willem jump in here, the formal plans have been announced by the big 4 banks. However, having said that, I think given that all of us are in the situation together, it is useful for you as a small business owner to approach your large creditors and try and sit down with them and come to some sort of agreement with them on how you can manage the next 3 to 4 months, bearing in mind there is dependent on your cash inflow as you are on your customers' inflow. So it's really trying to find a middle ground where you can meet them where they are, particularly the guys who are smaller, such as yourselves, your suppliers, and that sort of thing would be people that you want to talk to carefully about how you pay them the amounts that you owe and how they continue to supply you during these 90 days.
Okay. Willem, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I wanted to just first of all come in and say thank you to you guys for hosting this and for starting this discussion, because I've really been encouraged to see just how South Africans in general have come together, these last few days. And I think for me, the thing that stands out is this is a good opportunity for that good human-to-human interaction, where people start to talk to each other. I think we are all very concerned about many things, and there's many ways in which everybody's fears are busy manifesting in this time. And the best thing to do in my mind is to talk about it. And from a business perspective, it's good for suppliers and business owners and customers to all talk to each other and see, as Kenny said, where one can find that middle ground. So I think you're doing a great job in taking leadership in that regard and just getting the discussion going. Thank you.
Well, I think it's incredible that even though we're all in lockdown and we're feeling kind of in lots of ways isolated, it really has brought so many people together. It really has opened up so many conversations, and we have to always look at those positive factors in this kind of situation where we don't have a lot of control over most things. So thanks, appreciate that. And that is exactly what this forum is about. So let's talk specifically for business owners, because the payment holiday or these sort of initiatives that are being run, can we say that there are some specific benefits for business owners, or is it sort of personal capacity across the board? Is there anything specifically for people who are running their own business that they should know about these payment holidays?
I think, first of all, from my perspective, I have to admit I'm somewhat conflicted, on this whole topic, because whenever I look at a business, I'm always looking first and foremost at what do we need to do to ensure the long-term survival of the business. And so from that perspective, I would say, anything like a payment holiday tends to not sit well with me, because it prolongs a position of being in some sort of debt, and it also increases the cost of servicing that debt. So just from that perspective, from an overall perspective, it's conflicting. But I think Kenny made a very, very good point just now by saying that, well, in the short run, sometimes, given where we are today, it's important to consider these, shall I say, unusual things. From my perspective, I think it gives a fantastic opportunity for any business owner to sit down and really think about the fundamentals of their business. And so if I can kind of throw a general thought out there, is to say, if it's possible to avoid going for a payment holiday, try to do that. And first, look internally what you can do to try and avoid that. And there's many things. I mean, we can talk about that now, later on in the webinar. But that's kind of my thoughts on that point.
Okay, so I'm gonna pick up on a couple of things that you said there, because the questions that we got from our community, there were a few, but two really were across the board what people really wanted to know. And what they wanted to know was, how will taking a payment holiday affect my interest rate and my repayment term? So it's almost like people are saying, wait, what's the catch here? I feel like this isn't a free pass. So maybe if you could unpack so that people have the right information, what is the catch? Is there a catch? And how will it affect the interest rate and repayment term of those bonds, for example, or anything of that matter?
So I think one of the most prominent examples out there at the moment, for example, is on Pay As You Earn, where SARS announced a 20% reduction in the amount of what you can withhold from your Pay As You Earn for the next couple of months. 4 months, I think, is what they said. We've heard people say, "Oh, great! It's like a discount. I pay less Pay As You Earn." The thing with that to remember is that the liability doesn't go away. And I think that concept applies to any other type of payment arrangement or payment holiday arrangement you may be able to get with whoever. Is that the obligation remains. Business is still business. It's most likely gonna just result in interest that's gonna continue to accrue during that payment holiday period. And obviously, if you stop making payments, the capital portion of that loan doesn't reduce. And because it doesn't reduce, because of the compounding effect of interest over time, it's going to ultimately lead to higher interest than what you would have paid otherwise. And then, of course, you might get a 3 or a 4 month payment holiday, but it most likely will end up you paying maybe 3, 5, 6, 7 months longer than what you would have done otherwise. So that's in the simplest way, which I see it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't, time doesn't stop, unfortunately. So those 3 months don't just get wiped off the slate or whatever the case may be. They just, in a way, get restructured. And so you kind of still obligated to meet those responsibilities, but just in a kind of a different way, just so that you're not directly impacted, but you are overall still going to be impacted, is what you're saying. Okay, great. Someone asked this question, which I thought was really interesting. It's not something that I had even thought about. And my question is kind of two parts. The first is, are there requirements that I need to meet in order to, you know, even think about approaching my financial services provider about a payment holiday? Is there, you know, do I have to be in some sort of position to even qualify for these things? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, well, you answer the first question, and I've got another one.
I think the point there is, speaking across the board for the institutions that have announced a payment holiday, is in different ways you have to be a customer in good standing. And each of them have defined what that means in their particular context. But the point there is you have had to be someone who has regularly made payment on their commitments, and that has demonstrated that other than this event occurring, you would have been able to service your debt. And I think that's actually a really important thing. I've had conversations with one or two people over the course of the last 10 days, where in a sense, this has been a relief for them because they were already on shaky ground, and this has given them what, in their view, breathing room. And I think it's really important for business owners to understand that that's not the reason or an opportunity to create breathing room for a already failing business. That's a different issue. You know, you've got to have a look at the Black Swan event and how that impacts a fairly robust business and a business that was already vulnerable. And your strategy is in reaching success for each one of those. Neither of them are beyond help, particularly the vulnerable one, but they can't rely on a payment holiday to survive this because their fundamentals will still be at risk 3 months down the track.
Okay. So there will be some conditions that you need to meet. And, you know, as with most things, I'm pretty sure it's going to be potentially different from provider to provider. And so there's probably not one blanket set of qualifying criteria that everyone can just tap into. It will largely depend on your unique circumstances, your history with that provider, like you said, your payment history, and also the provider themselves. How much are they able to offer their own community? So that makes sense to me. I see there are a couple of people that have just joined us. If you have just joined us, please feel free to ask your questions in our chat channel. I am muting everybody just so that we can have the floor initially, but we will try to address some of the things that you're asking. If I have a look there at the moment, we've been asked, will taking a payment holiday affect my credit score? And is credit insurance a better option to explore than before applying for a payment holiday? And I think those are really interesting questions to ask. I'm not sure that this is the forum. I think it probably would be a good idea to get someone from insurance to kind of weigh in on that. But I'll just give you guys an opportunity if there's anything that you want to add before I move on to our next question. Anything that you can add about insurance or credit ratings, or otherwise I'll just move on.
I can talk to both of them if you don't mind. Just broadly speaking. So first, the credit rating. In fact, this is fortunately something that's always been established in South African law. That if you have a creditor who gives you a payment holiday, whatever the reason, it won't affect your credit score. And places like TransUnion and Experian have that as part of their operating procedures. You just have to let them know that you're taking a payment holiday so that it doesn't register on their side as non-payment. But given, I think, the situation that we have currently where the big banks are and lenders in general are prepared to come to terms, that shouldn't be too much. It's a bit of admin. You just got to make sure that they're aware that your non-payment is a consequence of a payment arrangement that you've made with your supplier. The second one on credit insurance, just very briefly, credit insurance is typically insurance that you take should you die or become disabled and unable to service your debt. So generally speaking, the answer would be no, your credit insurance isn't a better option. However, there are providers who, and you'd have to go and look at your particular policy wording, where your inability to pay your credit, to pay your debt because of these circumstances that we find ourselves in now, may be a rider on that policy. A typical example of a retail credit insurance policy is where you become unemployed because of retrenchment. Then your credit insurance policy will pay a certain portion of your liability, either in full or partly. I think the important thing there as well is most credit insurance is attached to the amount of money you owe and is therefore endorsed by the lender of those funds. So quite often speaking to them about that, and I think I did pick it up on one of the banks where they were talking about how you can access your credit insurance policy to assist you in this time. So the shorter answer is take a look at your policy wording and touch base with your bank and the credit insurance provider. There may be an opportunity for you to have a claim in that regard.
Okay, great. Okay, then the kind of the interesting question that I got that I wanted to put to you guys is, if I'm renting a property and because of the coronavirus or the impact that it's having, my tenants are unable to pay me the rent that they need to pay me every month, would that count in my favor, or would I be able to state that as a loss of income when I'm applying for one of these payment holidays? Do you think that I would have grounds to use that information when applying for a payment holiday?
I think that is a good example of a specific application of facts of a given situation. And I think from a general perspective, I would just say, whatever your situation, try and gather as many relevant facts as possible. And I want to link back to what Kenny said in terms of what was the state of your business pre this what is happening at the moment, so that ultimately is going to help you support the suggestion that either the client's not paying or whatever else might be relevant to the facts, is as a consequence of COVID-19. But I think, put as many facts on the table as possible, be as open and transparent as possible. But I think also it will be important to demonstrate to whoever you're applying to that your fundamentals are sound. I think, one cannot overemphasize that. What are you doing about continued growth? In spite of what's happening now, you still need to focus on where your growth is going to come from, because in any situation, there's new opportunities. So it's time to reflect, time to innovate. How can you attract more customers? And the best way to attract customers is by demonstrating value, by the way. It's not growth at all costs. So you have to go back and look, what is the most effective way in which you can deliver your product or deliver your service. And this is where the move we're seeing now the last few days of people coming to grips with this whole idea of working remotely. What does that look like? How can I, as a business owner, leverage off the technology and the tools that are available out there? And I think for our business, we've been very fortunate that we have been working as a completely remote, in a remote environment. So for us, in a sense, it's business as usual. But I think it gives everybody a real opportunity to look at themselves and say, where in my operations can I streamline? Where can I become more efficient? Where can I make the whole delivery of my product and service more enjoyable for the customers? And then more importantly, quality of what you do and who are the people that you surround you with. For me, those speak to the fundamentals of your business. And when you therefore make application for whatever relief you're looking for, I would recommend emphasizing these things, but so as to explain why your business is a worthwhile concern.
I mean, I think it's quite interesting that this is really like a time for introspection for business owners as well. It's almost a chance for you to do a stock take on your business and on the fundamentals, as you mentioned, and really have a hard look at them and ask yourself some difficult questions. So I think there's also an opportunity for that. And as you said, innovation and kind of just looking at your overall strategy. We are going to start rounding things up, guys. If there's any last questions, please do post them in the chat. I've got one or two more questions for you, and then I'm going to give you guys the floor to just add any extra thoughts, any tips, any sort of thoughts for consideration for our community. I wanted to ask you, what You touched on insurance and there potentially being some possibilities there, but are there any alternatives for businesses to pay their debt aside from these payment holidays? Is there anywhere else they could go and look to for that kind of support?
So I think that, again, we're probably going back to the specifics of any particular organization. And I think the important thing here is just to apply your normal sort of fund management principles. So I would recommend that anyone in this situation would take all the monies they owe and then rank those monies based on the size of the interest rate that they're paying. And then talk to each institute, particularly those where the higher interest rates and the more immediate cash flow strain is going to come from, and try whatever you can to settle those. Taking a payment holiday from a high interest lend doesn't make a lot of sense. So a lot of you may have chosen to take some bridging finance prior to this happening. If you still have that bridging finance outstanding, do whatever you can to settle it. Its design isn't to be a long-term loan. So try and settle that, and then pick it off as you go down the list until you get to your creditors and come to terms with them in terms of what can they bear in terms of how much they can take from you. So I think that it's more about good business principles. I should have mentioned right up front that the first thing you need to do is do a very robust cash flow statement for yourself. One that's fairly dynamic so that you can take things out of it to see what the impact of those things are. So you draw up a cash flow and you ask what if questions. You say, what if I bring in no money for the next 60 days? What does that look like? And what does it look like if I can get 30% payment terms? And keep doing that until you've got a fairly strong playbook, if you like, which you can then take to the various lenders and say, look, I can't help you now, but this is the business plan I have to see me through the next 6 months. If you walk alongside me, then you know that would help me a lot. And because we're all in this together, I think they're going to find a community of understanding people who will support them if they've been a good supplier and customer in the past. Formal places, I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose you could go and ask your parents one more time if you still have parents around who are willing to lend you money. But I ran out of that rope so long ago that I'm starting to ask my kids for cash. But they're also broke now, so I have to stand back.
They're going to have to wash some cars or something.
I am. Actually, if you guys will look me up later on, I do have a car wash. I am doing my car washing by remote. I'll send you instructions.
Nice. Looking forward to that blog. Okay, I'm going to take this last question. I think it's quite a good question. It's around debt consolidation. So would you recommend considering a long-term loan of sorts to consolidate your short-term debt to reduce your monthly debt repayments? If so, what loan and through which organizations? That is the question.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and to me that speaks to the point that Kenny has just made, in that, you know, once you've got your playbook and you know what your current situation looks like, I think it's a good strategy. The challenge would be, I think, actually finding somebody, especially now, that would be, you know, willing and able to assist. But again, I think anybody who's in the business of lending money are also in it to make money, you know, if I can put it very crudely. And so if a business is attractive from a fundamentals perspective, you know, I think they would look at it. So the challenge, again, from my perspective, would be to tell the story about your business. What is the story? You know, what value do you add? How do you make a difference in your community? And this is not a soft question. This is, you know, what is the service that you offer, and how is it going to continue to add value and ultimately generate positive cash flows? That's where I think the focus really should be, is to tell that story.
Okay, I really like that. That's a nice takeaway. Guys, final thoughts from our DoughGetters legends. Are there any tips, closing remarks that you want to make before we wrap things up?
Just very quickly on my side, I want to thank Lulaleng for hosting this. And secondly, to everybody who joined us on this chat. I think what I want to take away, and this is going to be a lot softer than just accounting or that, is that this thing is not going to last forever. We need to, as best we can, stand together, not rip apart, and see how we can support each other. Keep your eye on social media. We've seen a lot of initiatives that have been launched, some very creative, innovative stuff. Get involved in those spaces. Use this time that you're not spending every minute of your day on your own business, on giving something into the community. I guarantee you'll get the dividends from it later on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, also from my side, thank you once again. And I just want to say that I think it's okay to be fearful. It's just not, don't let the fear overrun you. If I can be brutally honest, I had a very bad night's rest last night because I was scared. There's a lot of things that worries me. And I think what works for me is when I talk to people about it, my colleagues, my beautiful wife, because we are surrounded by people and we must just make use of the opportunity. But don't let fear overrun you.
We're all in this together, not to sound like a broken record or to just steal what everyone's saying, but we really are. We've all got to help each other through this. So thank you so much, DoughGetters. You guys are awesome. Guys, please, DoughGetters is part of our Facebook group, and they also have a Facebook page and website. You can go check out the posts that I've already done on the group. And you're free to comment and post your questions there as you think of them. If you wake up at 2 in the morning and think, oh, I should have asked that question, you can really ask at any time. They're a fantastic team and they'll jump on that, and we'll try to keep giving you content that answers these questions. Thanks everyone for spending your lunch break with us. Really appreciate it. And we'll be doing a lot more of these, so stick around and keep posted on our group. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you, DoughGetters team.